teen suspect in parents' murders who reached out to true crime influencers. In the quiet towns of Georgia, where tree-lined streets and suburban neighborhoods promise safety, a chilling story began to unfold. It was February, an ordinary winter month, when the extraordinary horror struck. A 17-year-old girl named Sarah Grace Patrick would soon be at the center of a case that not only shocked her community, but left the entire nation unsettled. The story was not just about the brutal killing of her own mother and stepfather, but about what she did after the blood was spilled. For Sarah didn't simply commit an unthinkable act. In the aftermath, as detectives scrambled to collect evidence and neighbors whispered in disbelief, Sarah reached out to true crime influencers online. She allegedly messaged creators who make content about murders, disappearances, and real-life criminal cases, pitching her own story as if it were some kind of grotesque opportunity. She told them it would be a really big hit and that she could provide them with intel. It is here at the crossroads of murder and media where this case becomes something far more than a tragic family crime. It becomes a disturbing reflection of modern culture, a culture where some crave notoriety so desperately that even bloodshed becomes a means of grabbing the spotlight. This is the story of Sarah Grace Patrick, the teen accused of murdering her parents and then offering the crime as content for true crime entertainment. To understand Sarah, we must go back to the beginning. By most accounts, Sarah's early life was not marked by the same extreme hardships we often hear in the backgrounds of killers. She grew up in Georgia, raised by her mother and later her stepfather. Friends and neighbors described her as bright, quiet, and somewhat introverted. She attended school regularly and showed signs of being a fairly normal teenager. But beneath the surface, Sarah's world was complicated. Reports suggest she had a difficult relationship with her mother. Arguments were frequent, some about ordinary teenage rebellion, others about more serious issues of control, independence, and authority. Her stepfather, though by many accounts a stabilizing figure, may have added another layer of tension to the household. Like many teenagers, Sarah found her escape online. She immersed herself in digital communities, social media, and, importantly, the growing world of true crime content. She consumed documentaries, podcasts, and influencer commentary, learning the narratives, the structures, and the ways crimes were dissected and repackaged for mass audiences. To her, this wasn't just entertainment, it was education. And perhaps, in a twisted way, it became inspiration. The days leading up to the crime. February brought with it the weight of mounting stress. Classmates noted that Sarah had seemed withdrawn in the days before the killings. Teachers described her as distracted, often scribbling in notebooks instead of paying attention to lectures. Online, she became more active, lurking in chats, following discussions, and absorbing content about other crimes that had shocked the world. Was she studying, preparing, or simply spiraling into obsession? The details are still being pieced together, but prosecutors believe Sarah was not acting in a blind fit of rage. They suggest she planned, at least to some degree, what was about to happen. The night of the murders. It was late in the evening when the tranquility of the Patrick household was shattered. According to investigators, Sarah armed herself with a weapon and attacked both her mother and her stepfather. The violence was swift, brutal, and deeply personal. There was no forced entry. No intruder to blame. The victims were killed by someone they had trusted, someone they had raised. For neighbors, the first signs came not from screams, but from the sudden, eerie silence. The house that once radiated the ordinary sounds of suburban life now stood still, dark, and deadly quiet. Police would later describe the crime scene as deeply disturbing, blood evidence painting a picture of the violent acts that unfolded within those walls. Sarah, only 17 years old, was now accused of murdering the very people who had given her life and shelter. The shocking twist, reaching out to true crime influencers. If the story had ended there, it would have already been a devastating tragedy. But what Sarah did next turned it into something far darker. In the hours and days after the murders, Sarah reportedly contacted true crime influencers. She reached out to content creators who make YouTube videos, TikToks, and podcasts about real-life murder cases. She told them she had a story that would be a big hit. She claimed she could provide insider intel. Imagine that for a moment. A teenager fresh from killing her own family, immediately pivoting to pitch the act as content. It was as if the murders were not just crimes, but a ticket to internet notoriety. This decision shocked even hardened investigators. Detectives had seen killers try to cover their tracks. They had seen killers flee, lie, confess, or even brag. But to market the crime, to treat it as if it were a breaking news collaboration with online creators, was something new, something uniquely twisted by the modern internet age. Community reaction. The town reeled in disbelief. Neighbors who once waved to Sarah on the way to school now spoke in hushed, horrified tones. Some described her as polite, normal, even sweet. Others admitted they had noticed her growing distance, her fascination with dark subjects, but never thought it would come to this. Teachers and classmates expressed shock. They could not reconcile the girl they had known in hallways and classrooms with the suspect now facing first-degree murder charges. For them, the greatest horror was not just the act itself, but the sense of betrayal. And for the broader public, one question hung heavily in the air. Why? Psychological analysis, the fame factor, criminologists and psychologists quickly weighed in. What would drive a teenager not only to kill her parents, but to then seek validation from strangers online? Some experts pointed to narcissism, a desire for recognition at any cost. Others suggested Sarah may have struggled with a distorted sense of reality, one shaped by endless hours of online immersion. In her mind, the line between real life and true crime content may have blurred. There is also the darker possibility that Sarah believed the crime itself was her way of writing herself into the story she had long consumed. Instead of being a spectator to murder documentaries, she would now be the subject. The anti-hero, the one whose name would echo across podcasts, videos, and social media feeds. It is a terrifying notion that in the digital age, some may see violence not only as an outlet for rage, but as a path to fame. Legal proceedings. Sarah Grace Patrick was arrested and charged with first-degree murder for the killings of her mother and stepfather. Because she was 17 at the time of the crime, the legal process raised immediate questions. Would she be tried as a juvenile or as an adult? Prosecutors, citing the brutality of the crime and her actions afterward, pushed to have her charged as an adult. The defense, meanwhile, painted a different picture, one of a troubled teenager, perhaps struggling with mental illness, who needed rehabilitation more than punishment.
Here's what law enforcement said when they were asked about an alleged motive.
We are still working with her diligently. Our investigators have been speaking with her.
It is correct that she was the one who made the 911 call, correct?
Yes.
At what point did investigators begin to focus on her as the suspect?
So I believe in the beginning of any case, everyone's a suspect. I think I told many of you that when we were on scene that day. However, as an investigation continues and everything ebbs and flows, like I said in my press release, mountains of evidence has gotten us through here today. Lots of processing, lots of working with our law enforcement partners to get us to where we are today that honed in on her as a suspect.
As police are still searching for a reason Sarah Grace would allegedly do this, it's important to note that Sarah was public about the loss of her parents. She even spoke at their funeral. Look at this video per WSB TV.
Although there's nothing we can do to bring them back, we still have control over how we treat people.
We were shocked with what we saw specifically on her TikTok. She presented herself as a victim, a young girl who lost her parents to senseless violence. But again, as you watch these, law enforcement say she's the one who did it. Look at this post. This is from March 1st, just weeks after she allegedly killed her mom and stepdad in their sleep. She posts a tribute video to them with the caption, quote, "They don't know it, but a year from now, me and my 5-year-old sister would find them wrongfully shot dead in our home and won't get to watch me graduate high school, see me walk down the aisle, and couldn't even say goodbye." Here's a video of her crying. This was posted on March 18th, less than a month after she allegedly killed her parents, with the caption, quote, "Please send prayers for healing and a break from everything. I'm so tired, I should probably delete later." And here's a picture from a TikTok on Mother's Day this year in May with Kristen, who she allegedly murdered, with the caption, "But my ultimate inspiration comes from my best friend." And here she is crying, heading to the funeral of the 2 people she allegedly killed. She also has this picture that reads, "What do you mean I can't call my mom?" And then there's this one that says, quote, "Why me?" Now, these are incredibly sad, but then you have to remember that law enforcement says they have a mountain of evidence that shows she is the one who did this. At the same time, she also appears to have continued to live her life beyond the alleged cover-up that she killed 2 people. Just a week ago, she posted this video from a beach. In their news conference, law enforcement said that Sarah Grace turned herself in after she was told that she was going to be charged with the murders of the Brocks. Her biological father, law enforcement say, drove her to the station. The sheriff's office also said there was a, quote, mountain of evidence that ties her to these murders, but they wouldn't go deeper into that at this point. As for the little girl, the Brock's daughter, the half-sister of their alleged killer, the now 6-year-old girl who allegedly found her parents dead in their bed, law enforcement says she is now living with family members.
In court, Sarah pleaded not guilty. Her attorneys began crafting a defense that would test the limits of public sympathy. Could the jury see her as a child, overwhelmed by forces beyond her control? Or would they see her as a cold-blooded killer who plotted not only to take lives, but to profit from the spectacle? The case continues to move through the courts, but even in these early stages, it has become clear this will not be an ordinary trial. Broader commentary, true crime, and the digital age. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. True crime has exploded in popularity, becoming one of the most consumed genres on YouTube, podcasts, and streaming platforms. Millions tune in to hear about murders, kidnappings, and criminal psychology. But what happens when those consuming the content decide they want to be the content? Sarah's actions are not just a reflection of her individual psychology. They are a mirror held up to our culture, a culture where tragedy can be turned into clicks, where notoriety can be mistaken for legacy, and where some will do anything to be noticed. This is not to say that true crime causes crime. But cases like Sarah's force us to recognize how a young, impressionable mind might misinterpret the stories they consume. For her, it seems, the line between victim, perpetrator, and audience collapsed entirely. The murders of Sarah Grace Patrick's mother and stepfather are, at their core, a heartbreaking tragedy. 2 lives were lost, 2 people who will never return to their community, their family, or their friends. But the case also serves as a chilling warning about the times we live in. It is not only about violence in the home, but about the hunger for recognition that now pulses through the veins of social media. Sarah was not content to commit the crime. She wanted it to be known, to be shared, to be consumed. In the end, the court will decide her fate. But for society, the questions remain. What does it mean when murder becomes a means of chasing fame? How do we protect vulnerable minds from mistaking infamy for achievement? And what responsibility do we all bear as consumers of true crime in shaping the narratives that others may one day seek to join?
For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sarah, and I'm Kristen Brock's daughter and James Brock's stepdaughter. This isn't easy. I don't know how family to do this all the time, but I'm really happy I get to do this. But just bear with me because I stutter a lot. I just wanted to say goodbye to my mom and Jamie since we never got the chance to. I was so used to you guys always being here to the point that I never once thought to imagine y'all not being here. I didn't have a single clue how much I needed y'all until now. For James, thank you for all the life lessons you taught me and for being the best bonus dad ever. Your heart will finally be healed in heaven and neither of y'all will be in any pain anymore. Although that gives me so much comfort, your fight was not supposed to end there. And for my mother, everything we went through does not define what kind of person or what kind of mother you were. You were a beautiful, kind soul with so much gratitude and so gosh dang strong. And you taught me so many life lessons, and some that you just recently taught me were through a letter you sent to James in 2018. When I first read it, I smiled and I cried, and I got chill bumps. But every single time I read it, it puts me to a lot of peace. You know that everything happens for a reason. I can choose to let it define me, confine me, refine me, outshine me, or I can choose to move on and leave it behind me. Always, Kristen Brock. Gladly they will save a seat for me in heaven like they'd saved a seat for me in this very church. Although there's nothing we can do to bring them back, we still have control over how we treat people with us today. Therefore, when someone tries to tell you anything, no matter how important it could be, just listen, because you never know when it's somebody's time to go.
This is the haunting case of Sarah Grace Patrick, the teenager accused of murdering her parents and then reaching out to true crime influencers, offering her own story as the next big hit.